The Ricmotech GT Challenge, broadcasted Mondays live on Apex Racing TV. Visit ExtremeMotorsports99.com for series and schedule details. Broadcast coverage next.
Welcome to the Ricmotech GT Challenge here from Road Atlanta. It's myself, Tyler Maxson, and Daniel Dorr giving you all the action here from this iconic race circuit. And it's been a long while since we've been in the GT cars. Last time out, it was at Le Mans for round number 4 of this championship. But it's been 4 weeks now. The drivers have had plenty of time to take a break and get themselves ready to go GT racing once again here tonight. So it's at a very iconic circuit. The weather conditions and track is up on your screen now. But Daniel, this is a very tough racetrack for these drivers, especially in these GT3 and GTE machinery that they will be wrestling around here tonight.
I think that's exactly right. This is a track where, a lot of your braking points are really late, deep into the corners, especially in these cars that have a lot of aero and, really good grip profiles. So they're also stiffly sprung. So some of the curbing is going to unsettle them. So, it'll be interesting to see how much skipping of turn 3 we have for drivers to avoid that off track and, really how they deal with keeping the car balanced in some of the trickier corners on this track.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It will definitely be a challenge for those guys, especially going down through those downhill S's into turn number 5. I know it's a very popular idea to use the curb on the entry of 5 to help you kind of get the car rotated a little bit, but like you said, these cars are very stiffly sprung, so it can be a challenge sometimes to get it over the curbing. We're currently just about 3 minutes away from the start of qualifying. If you're unfamiliar with the series, we will have 4 laps or 15 minutes for the drivers to complete their laps tonight. We will have a 75-minute race this afternoon, 1 pit stop on offer, and it is going to be exciting racing. Next time out, for those of you who are wondering, we will be, I believe, it'll be a 90-minute race. I do know that much, and I believe it's going to Silverstone. Yes, it will be. It'll be at the new Silverstone, for 75 minutes. Just something I did want to run through here on our notes. And another cool thing is Jennifer McDonald has joined us back in the field in the BMW M8 GTE. She currently sits in 20th in your practice standings, but this is going to be a tough track, and it's going to be awesome for 75 minutes of racing. We see strategy come into effect on these 75-minute races so often. Dana, what are you kind of expecting going into this race, at least from a strategy and racing perspective?
Well, there's a lot we could cover there, Tyler. But I think when it comes to pit stops, this should be a really interesting track in that you have quite a bit of tire wear in a couple of the harder corners on the track. You've got some really fast left-handers really eating up those left side tires. So on tires, I'm expecting that there should be some meaningful tire choices for the drivers to make. But it isn't a 90-minute race, so that we may see a lot of folks skip out on tires if they've been good to them during the race. But as for fuel, we may actually see some pretty early pit stops here if someone's trying a more interesting fuel strategy of, trying to come in early and take one large heavy tank to try and make it to the end of the race. But I think a lot of the drivers will have to decide how many caution laps we'll have to deal with to see if they can get any fuel saving in there. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and that is something, too, that, we've seen that actually only one time in my history of covering this series, and I've covered this series since race number 1 for it, and we've only seen it once. It happened at Suzuka last season, but who's to say it won't happen again? This is a track that, for me, I think has got a lot of similarities to Suzuka. You've got the long back straightaway, you've got the sweeping S corners, and you've got a very tight and tricky entry into turn number 1, so in my opinion, this kind of resembles Suzuka a little bit, except maybe a little bit less elevation change at Suzuka. But I mean, who's to say we don't get another full course caution tonight? And that really, really turned up the heat on the strategy when we did get that at Suzuka. So, like you said, it depends on how much fuel you can save in those sessions, and we're just waiting right now on everybody to go ahead and finish up their final laps here. We're 15 seconds away from hitting into qualifying. Some of your big heavy hitters, we've seen them up front all season long. Andrew Karen, William Lasser, Abner Acosta. He's kind of a newer driver towards the super tail end, or the super front end of this field. Kane Bien, we've seen him be fast in previous rounds, but all the drivers that we're used to seeing up front are up front again here tonight. The only kind of change that we've seen is Ian Gagnon Renault. He's actually a little bit further down the order than what we've been used to seeing him in. So it's going to be interesting this next qualifying session.
Yeah, and so I guess, if the drivers are really competing here for 4 laps, it will be interesting to see, how many drivers can complete those 4 laps clean, because it'll take a little while for them to heat the tires up to really get the optimal qualifying lap out of them. So if they have a dirty lap, let's hope it's the first lap and not, the second or third.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That would be the most ideal for them, is to kind of get that unfortunate lap out of the way early on and get some heat back into the tires again. So unfortunately, we don't have a track guide for you tonight, but instead, we are going to let you ride on board here with a couple of the drivers during the qualifying laps. We're going to give you just uninterrupted coverage with them on that. So at the start of this next lap here for Ian Gagnon Renault, we will let you ride on board with him just so you can see the challenges and demands that he goes through around this track in the 4GT. And another thing to keep in mind, too, is we did actually start up a new season with this BOP, but the drivers still don't have the greatest idea. Obviously, the iRacing BOP being a bit different than this BOP is in here. So it definitely can prove to be a challenge for some of these guys who maybe don't test on the correct BOP and then trying to get the setup sorted out correctly. But we'll talk about that more whenever we come back. We're going to let you ride on board here with Ian Gagnon Renault. And that was an onboard lap there with Ian Gagnon Renault. That slots him into 3rd position as of right now. But we were just talking, Daniel, about the track here and just how the different cars go around this place. And we were saying how different it is to go around here in different cars. So, I mean, kind of give us your insight a little bit into just the differences in vehicles around here.
Yeah, I think the car that I probably have the most time that we're going to see here tonight is the Mercedes-AMG GT3 car. And, around this track, it's one of the exceptions for me in that I feel like I don't have a tremendous advantage over the other cars. There's a few slow corners where I feel like I'm a little bit easier for me to rotate the car, and I can get on power, get off a little bit sooner. But through some of the higher speed sections, I feel like I tend to lose, time against some of the mid-engine cars. So the 4GT and the Ferrari, I know I personally tend to struggle with them a little bit. But I guess you've spent some time on this track. What is your take on which cars to look for having an advantage here, given the balance of power that we're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a real fan of the 4GT around this place. It's always been really, really fast. As you can see, Laster, Karen, they're all, and Ian Gagnon Renault, they're all improving their times around the second lap. But I've always been a real fan of the 4GT around here. I know that's been a real fan favorite for a lot of drivers. Even before the 4GT had a really good BOP like it does in this season in the official iRacing series. Even whenever it was kind of a bit slower back in, mid-2019, late 2019, that was still a car that I would drive around here and I would pick over any other car. And that's something that I think still stands true. The 4GT has always been really, really fast around here, so keep an eye on them going on through tonight. And also keep an eye on the Audis. The Audi is also a very, very fast vehicle around here in the GT3 class. That's another one that I think we could see really challenging later in the run. When the tire wear kind of gets tough, the Audi seems to have pretty good tire wear in comparison to its front engine counterparts, just being the difference in where the weight is really in the car.
That really makes a big difference on track, and this track the most abrasive on the calendar from what I can tell, but it's still one that, given some of those higher compressions, higher speed corners going one direction or another, you can really wear some of the fronts more than you expect.
Yeah, you certainly can wear them quite a bit here. And as we'll check in, let's jump on board here with Ignacio Hortal as he comes across the line, and he will take a lap, and we'll do another on-board lap here for you. And that was a majority lap there with the driver of Ignacio Hortal. So we just quickly had to jump out of that because he did stop on the racetrack. But we're just watching Caden Bien. He moved himself up into third place in your GTE runners, and he's coming down now to finish up his final lap. So a lot of these drivers just now finishing up their final of their laps, but one driver who's just getting started with his lap is Abner Acosta. He's only done his first lap, and he's already gone half second off of your current pole position sitter of William Laster. So Abner Acosta in the BMW, he may have a serious chance here tonight.
Yeah, and I guess, at this time of day that we're running, how much do we think, waiting those extra, 7 to 10 minutes will give you an advantage on track conditions? Like, will we see some of the marbles cleared off of a couple areas and a little bit of rubbering in on the surface there? Or, what are you thinking is the strategy here for him waiting so long?
I mean, it could definitely be a multitude of things, just trying to see what he needs to get, then trying to get that on the fly. Some people, they have setups that are just built for a bit hotter tracks, and they know the track is going to get a little bit hotter as the session moves on, so they will wait. Obviously, with Abner Acosta, he drives for Movano Sim Racing. They're a very accomplished sim racing team, so they will definitely have the numbers crunched, and he doesn't go any faster on that lap. He does. He now goes to a 16.4. So Abner Acosta, watch for him. He is going to be very, very quick. He's only 4/10 off of your current driver who's on pole position, and we've only seen drivers get faster as the session goes on. No one has gotten slower thus far as the session goes. So Abner Acosta, he's looking like he's going to be on a perfect train here to possibly take pole position from William Laster.
And that was a really beautiful, clean exit of turn 5 there. The car was under control. We didn't see any hopping. A little bit of blinking here, maybe a connection bit, but yeah, it seemed like he really had a good exit through 5, and again here through turn 7. So this is probably going to be a good lap for him.
Yeah, should be a very good lap for him here. We'll see if we can pull up his live... we'll see if we can pull up his live sectors here down at the bottom. And we can. I just need to turn off one of my other components here. And I click on somebody else again. Sorry about that, folks. And there we go. We're back here with Habanero Costa. Let's see if we can get him here on the board. And this is... he will come across the line. What does he get here heading on to this lap? He does not improve, actually, on this lap. So there we go. Now we have the sectors that we were looking for. So here's sector number 1. Let's see how he goes, and we'll get him in comparison to your drivers currently on pole position. That is William Laster. So you can see exactly what the differences here are in the sector gaps. I'm not sure if it'll actually give it to us. There we go. Maybe. Doesn't look like that'll actually give it to us, so sorry about that. We'll just kind of have to wing it here and see if he actually will be able to go any quicker. Last time he actually did go quicker, but it wasn't enough to move him up any considerable positions. He only went 1/100th of a second faster, did Habanero Costa. But he is the last of your drivers right now to still be setting laps in the GTLM category. That's actually out there in the racetrack. Everyone else is not out on the racetrack or is just now finishing up or has already finished all their allotted laps. So this is the final time now through turn 10A and B for Habanero Costa. It looks like a good run. I don't know what you saw, Daniel, but it looked to me like this is a pretty good lap for him.
This is looking like he's under control. He's really gripping in. You can see him using all the track on every exit. Let's see where the lap comes in. Ooh, drops it almost 500ths there. That's a great lap. Unfortunately, not enough to move him further up in the standings, but that's a big improvement.
Yeah, very big improvement for him. And like you said, not able to move him up in the standings, but if we look at a 1-second bracket right now for the drivers in the GTLM class, we're looking right at about 10 drivers. That's a pretty healthy margin of drivers within that 1-second bracket, especially for a track like here at Road America. And to think that's almost half your field is within 1 second for GTLM, that is really, really close.
Absolutely. I mean, considering the field is only 24 cars that are, 25 or 24 GTLMs setting qualifying times right now. That's nearly half of the field is within a second. I mean, it's going to be some good racing in the next 75 minutes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And your GTD field is even closer than that. Right now, we have the entire field but two drivers, are within the 1-second bracket. We have 11 out of 13 drivers who have set a lap time are within 1 second. So your GTD field is going to be a field to keep an eye on here tonight. They are insanely close, and they are not looking like they are going to be spreading out just by the looks of it from the qualifying time. So that's definitely going to be a field to keep an eye on. It may only be 13 cars strong, but it is certainly going to be an amazing battle for them a bit later on. So we're just about 2 minutes now to the end. We stay with Tony Kernan. He's already finished up all of his allotted laps, but he's just still getting a little bit of practice in, and now he finishes up, and we'll go back here to Robert Brist, who as well is just kind of still trucking on and running some laps here, just trying to get as much practice as he can in just before we get going. And if you look up at the top, you can see what the different color codes mean. GTLM is the red class, and GTD is the green colored class. You can tell that by the number plates, their wings, and they're the tip of the wing and the tip of the mirrors on the cars. You can also see it by our overlay there, being the different colors. So we're just getting finished up. We're just waiting for everyone now to go ahead, or we're just waiting on the session to switch over now. But with the fields being so close, and with this track itself just promoting close racing in general, I'm really excited for this race. I don't know what you think.
I'm really excited. I think there'll be a couple corners in particular that we'll be paying attention to for some action, but that you might see in every race. But given how close the field is, we're likely to see a lot of action in some non-traditional zones, I would expect. You've had a considerable amount of time racing this track. What are your thoughts from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a track that promotes racing, and this is also a track that can be very mentally challenging for drivers because it's not the simplest track to drive. There's a lot of elevation change. There's just a lot of changes, quick and abrupt changes in this field that you really just can't prep for. whatsoever. So it is definitely a challenge to drive this place, but it's also one of the places that provides some of the best racing in all of the world, and especially on all of iRacing. So this is definitely a track that I love, and this is definitely a track that is going to be a lot of fun to watch here tonight. 30 seconds left in qualifying, and then we'll get going to your grid. And we'll talk about it more and more throughout the race, but the amount of strategy that is involved in this is going to be immense. I mean, we've seen drivers be able to completely get by and completely blow other people out of the water and win races by a long shot. Not so much by having the greatest pace in the racetrack, but by just having the best strategy in the field. So we'll see that come into play a little bit, but we'll talk about that a little bit more on the formation lap because we have your qualifying results ready for you. William Laster will start on the pole position here with Andrew Caron alongside him. Then it's Karen Bien, Abner Acosta, Ian Gagnon-Renault, Robert Hartley, Travis Schwenke, Mike Dam, Miguel Crudo, and Angel Ledesma. That is your 10-car. That is your top 10. And then it is David Payton, and then Miguel Arcrudo, who will round out your top 12. Then we'll move down a little bit more to be Rafael Sosa, Humberto Roca. That'll be row number 7. Then it'll be Brian Cartier, Jordy Fike, Derek Holland, Los Gidiolio, Kevin Ford, and Arthur Chan. That rounds up your top 20. Then it's Michael Schlegelmich, Chris Thorman, Russ Ruddick, and Chad Curran. That is your 24-car GTLM field. Other than there's a few drivers down the order just a little bit who did not set qualifying times. This is Jose Cabrera, Jennifer McDonald, Elvis Rankin, and Marco Calvi, one of the new drivers in the league. Then it's Dennis Sirac, who lines up on the pole position in your GTDs. Then it's Ignacio Hortal, Esteban Rodriguez, Caleb Lavender, Kevin Borgas, and Tyler Galmente. That is your top 6 in GTLM. Then it's Tony Kernan, Anthony Pisano, Brandon Whitworth, Eric Violet, Jeff Jacobs, Chris Thorne, Jim List, Robert Brist, and Bobby Childs. That is your entire field of drivers here tonight. But like I was saying, we'll see a lot of strategy come into play in this race, and that is something that we've seen happen in the past. And like I was saying too, drivers can win and lose races based on how good they have the strategy.
And if it were you in this sort of situation, seeing how close the field is, is your team going to save a little bit of fuel, or maybe try and push another driver to use a little bit more than they otherwise would? What are your thoughts on that matter?
See, I'm always someone who I kind of stick to my own plan. I'm not too worried about what other drivers around me are doing. Now, obviously, if I can do something to kind of get in the mind of the other driver, or if I can do something to just get an advantage on them in some way, I'm obviously going to do it. But at the end of the day, I'm running my race, per se, and then the others will just kind of do what they're doing. Because if you let someone pressure you into pushing harder and burning off more fuel, or if you let them pressure you, then all it's going to cause you to do is make more and more mistakes, burn off your equipment quicker, and then you're just going to have a worse time about it later on into the race. But if you keep a cool head and you just know that that's going to happen, and you don't really let anybody pressure you into pushing harder than you want to push or deviating from your strategy, then at the end of the day, you are definitely going to be better off than the other drivers will be.
I really like your point about it's all about minimizing mistakes. While minimizing your own personal mistakes and the cost of them. I think that makes a lot of sense. It does feel like in some points in time you can kind of create opportunities for someone else to make a mistake. But I think if you worry about your own race, then you have opportunities to make those choices. So I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can get yourself into an even better position than, you kind of were expecting to be in, then, maybe you can kind of go for those, and kind of get in the minds of other drivers. Maybe try to force them into doing something. But you almost want to do that just by running your own race pace. You almost want them to be intimidated just by doing what you want to do. and that would be, the best thing for you to do. So, I mean, it's tough to say. There's a lot of different strategies out there. Drivers have pulled pretty much every single strategy in the book. We've seen insane fuel runs. We've seen drivers who are just super aggressive and go for the really fast and just as really fuel-heavy strategy. So we've seen every single strategy in the book here in the GT Challenge, and we will continue to see it again. But it'll be William Laster and Andrew Caron who will line them up and take them down to the starting grid. The field will be in the hands of William Laster as the pace car will pull off the racing circuit, and then it will be the numbers 31 F4H Racing Ford who will give them the green, and they will go green, and there's already a massive incident. It's Lowski D'Olio who's spinning. There's a lot of drivers spun around in the background, but we'll come back to that one here in a second as they're all side by side down into turn number 1. They're all going to make it through one cleanly. A couple drivers getting shuffled around, but that was already a massive incident down and towards turn number 1. And we'll jump back here to your GTD runners who are just about to get going here as they crest the top of the hill. And it will be Dennis Servac and Ignacio Hortal who will take them down to the green. Field will be in the hands of Race Control, Ryan Cobb. They will go green flag racing, and it'll be Dennis Servac who will lead him down into turn number 1. But Ignacio Hortal, he's got an amazing start from the outside. They may want to take a look at that in the stewards room. He may have jumped that start just a little bit as he gets a very nice half-second lead here early on.
Some of the drivers were trying to consider going 3 wide into turn 1 there. They always say that you can't win a race in turn 1, but you can lose it. So it was good to see the drivers back off of it. Give us an extra, more interesting 75 minutes.
Oh, and that's another driver already off in the background, I believe. That was Eric Violet. Yes, it was. Let's get a replay then of exactly what happened, and then we'll go back to your incident on the start that originally happened, which took out several drivers there in that whole deal. I believe Marguerite Cruda, but there you go. Just a little bit of a simple incident, I believe, there for Jim Liss. Let's try to get another view of that. Yes, here we go. This is the view I want to see. Just loses it down the hill and actually gets tagged by his teammate and goes into the barrier hard. But now let's take a look here at the incident which happened with Travis Schwanke. Oh, he's off the racetrack here. What happened to him? We'll quickly grab a replay of this. Sorry we're kind of jumping around a lot, guys, but this is there's a lot of stuff happening early on here. Oh, and he's just going to lose it. Leaving out of turn number 1, keeps it out of the wall, crucially. What a save then from Travis Schwanke. Nice job from him to keep it going there, and Kevin Ford's got to slow down.
Yeah, that was absolutely a great save, saving it off the wall there and giving him a chance to continue to run this race and kind of make up those positions.
Yeah, it certainly was. Now let's take a look here at exactly what happened in towards turn number, or down to the first corner. Let's get a blimp view here. Oh, so he just gets tagged, and then he gets spun around, spins someone else, and then that just causes a massive ripple effect for everyone down in the midfield. So really nothing that he can do there. I believe Race Control is taking a look at that, but we have an amazing battle right here. This is Derek Holland and Kevin Ford. They're battling it out as they head out of turn 11 and now down through turn 12 in the final corner.
Drivers are definitely, it looks like they're trying to decide whether or not to work together and run away from the pack, or if they're going to race with each other and try and push through. They were starting to build a little bit of a lead before turn 3 there, but looks like it's balancing out amongst the top 4, around a second between each of them.
It certainly is here. We'll take a look here at this battle for 5th position. Robert Hartley currently leads this one. It's Michael Arcrudo in 2nd, and then it's Andrew Caron who sits down in 3rd there in this particular battle. And then the guys out front have kind of started to pull away a little bit here. William Laster currently 1 second ahead of Caden Bien, and then Bien has about another second to Abanera Costa, who then has about 9/10 of a second to Ian Gagnon, and then there's a 1.5 second gap back to this gaggle here. But Andrew Caron, he's looking to get by Miguel Arcrudo down into turn 10A, and he'll make it work. He won't even have to fight him in through 10B, and he'll get that easily now up through turn 11. Oh, and he's going to lose it! Andrew Caron spins and he taps the wall, and he's going to lose a lot of time in that one. Let's get a replay of exactly what happened. So, Danny, walk us through this one.
see him charging in on the inside of 10A, and he's got a good, cool, collected exit. But as he comes through 10B, he drops a tire in the grass and, just can't collect that. But he keeps it off the wall for most of the damage. So at least his race is not over. He's got some time to come back in and build that, catch that back up to the mid-pack.
Yeah, exactly right. And you saw there at the bottom, the number 11 of Humberto Roca. He was the one who caused that massive first turn incident with the driver of Miguel Arcrudo. So he has gotten a penalty for that one, and he will have to come in and serve that. I believe that was a drive-through penalty there that he got. Now, we haven't really taken a look here at your GTD field, but Caleb Lavender currently holding off, or currently trying to chase down Dennis Servac for second place in this race. Esteban Rodriguez is just behind Lavender. He's trying to capture third from Lavender.
I mean, they're all incredibly close to each other. The pressure, you can imagine it building, even though these guys do this essentially for a living. Running with that many drivers that close, you really focus on make sure I run my race, don't make a mistake. But we'll see if any of them try and make a move down after turn 7.
We ride on board here with Esteban Rodriguez as he goes down the back straightaway here now, and he's chasing down that group just ahead of him. Now, there's just a lot of battling all the way through the field. Let's take a look here at this battle for 9th position. This is Kevin Ford still leading out Derek Holland in the Ferrari, so you can see the Beamer and the Ferrari, some of the two most used GT3 cars, or was the most used GT3 cars GTE cars, before this whole patch update did come out. And Derek Holland still making it work, but he's getting caught quite quickly here by a recovering Travis Schwenke in the BMW.
It looked like actually at the top of 3 he had a little bit of wheel lockup, and then he had some lockup again in 5, and now here 7. Is he struggling a little bit? Did he have an issue with a major lockup in one of the other corners or that we missed?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but he did relinquish the position to Travis Schwenke, and Derek Holland now is cycling down the order just a little bit, but this is very, very close. 3 cars now. You could throw a blanket over them. They're not going to go 3 wide. Please don't go 3 wide down into 10A, but it will be Georgie Fike who will try to make the move there on Michael Schlegelmich. He won't be able to do so. Schlegelmich, by the way, has had an amazing start to the race, but look at Arthur Chan in the number 87 Porsche. He's looking to make up 2 spots in a matter of 2 corners there, but he isn't able to get by Jordy Fike. He's going to have to slot into line, and you can see now Miguel Arcrudo, he's trying to come back at him as well, and he will make the move now down into turn number 1. Oh, and he makes contact with Jordy Fike, and that's going to send Fike way off the racetrack. So we'll see the replay now. Walk us through it, Daniel.
Coming into turn 1, everything looks fine, but it looks like he just pushed a little bit too deep. And was that was Fike that made the contact there?
Yeah, Jordy Fike way off the racetrack. Unfortunate for him. And Chris Thorman. Oh, Thorman's gone off. What's happened to Thorman? This is terrible for these guys in a matter of corners.
Just loses it coming through that decompression and compression, double set in 6 there. Just loses the rear.
Oh, and then he gets hit too on the front nose. He couldn't have done anything about that. Did exactly what he was supposed to do there. Just kind of held his line and waited, but still ended up getting hit. But now you can see Travis Schwenke closing in here on Kevin Ford, a recovering Travis Schwenke, but he's done a nice job here. He's only down 3 positions from where he started, so he's done a nice job of recovering early on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. It looks like he's also benefited from some of the incidents here to try and give himself some space to catch back up, some free track in front of him.
And that's exactly what he needs here. We know Travis Schwenke's fast. He's fast in the sports car series as well. Kevin Ford, obviously the series admin, and one of the most hardworking people behind the scenes. That gets everything going here for us. So we do like to give Kevin a nice little bit of airtime in every single one of these broadcasts here. And he sports that Ricmotech paint as well. He currently runs a 9th. Wonderful run for him thus far, up 10 positions from where he started. Awesome start for him. Well, let's jump back and let's watch GTD here. Esteban Rodriguez, Caleb Lavender, and Dennis Servac. And if you're Caleb Lavender right now, what are you thinking going through your mind? You've got a driver behind you pressuring, and you're trying to pressure a driver ahead of you. So, I mean, that's a pretty tough situation to be in. And how do you kind of manage that, also knowing that you've got to keep in mind the latter run of this and the tire wear that you have to deal with?
I mean, it puts him in an interesting spot, back to our discussion earlier where you know, it's like, well, do you focus on running your own race, or do you try and pressure the driver in front of you? But, you know, they are starting to, you know, lose a little bit of a gap. I know it's only a second to Ignacio Hortal, but, you know, they need to work together to make sure that doesn't extend any further, but at the same time, they still want to sort that out and try and run away from the pack. So, yeah, I think this is one of those places where you need to make a decision quick, and stick to it for a few laps for fear of the rest of the pack catching back up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Ignacio Hortal, he's very, very quick. But as we say that, he loses 3/10 immediately. So commentator's curse, I'm not too sure. But he's I'm sure he won't be too fond about it, as Denis Servac, he goes purple here. And he was nearly 0.6 of a second faster on that lap. I mean, we know how fast Denis Servac has been. He has won, I think, most every round of the championship thus far. I mean, he is incredibly quick, and he's definitely a force to be reckoned with for these drivers. He is someone that every single week we've come has been extremely, extremely fast. But Ignacio Hortal, he is ready to take to the challenge here for him in RSR Esport. He is not afraid to get himself or to get himself to the lead and try to hold on to it. But he is getting caught hand over foot right now. He is really, really, really losing time to Denis Servac.
Rodriguez and Ladder, you know, that battle is definitely heating up here. We're likely to see a move between those two drivers pretty soon. Just close the gap. Let's see if he goes for it at 10 or if he waits until, you know, turn 1.
Yeah, so through 10A and 10B here now. Esteban Rodriguez, he's all over the back now of Caleb Lavender for the 3rd spot. Rodriguez, he probably will try to make this move because they've started to lose on Denis Servac, and Rodriguez has only caught Caleb Lavender since then, so I'm sure he will be looking for a move quite quickly, but he can't seem to find a way by just yet. He kind of backs up a little bit, gets the run through the corner, and that's just some of the little things that you need to be doing here. When you're the driver behind, you know that you have more pace than the driver ahead of you is. Just kind of backing up your braking points a little bit so that you can roll the first, you know, the exit of the corner as Lavender goes off and he smacks the wall. And that is a big off then for Caleb Lavender. What happened there?
You know, it just looked like he lost it coming down the hill there. Maybe got a little bit off balance on the right-hand transition here.
Oh, he gets up over the curb, and then, yeah, just like you said, just got off balance, and then that's all it takes is that little bit of off balance, and you are getting sent through a wild roller coaster there. But that is a good thing somewhat there for Esteban Rodriguez. Obviously, it's not what we're hoping for, but it's not terrible for him because he's able to get by quite easily. But now it's Denis Servac and Denis Hortal Denis Servac and Ignacio Hortal, who are now battling for the race lead, and this is a very, very close battle indeed.
And it's really great for Rodriguez. You know, if you've seen in the last, you know, in that battle through the 10s, he gathered 0.2 of a second up on the two of them. So them duking it out is allowing him back in the race for the top of the podium.
Yeah, definitely. But let's check back in now on your race leaders in your GTLM classes. This battle has come a little bit closer down. Now, Caden Bien is now within 0.8 of a second on William Laster for the lead, and then it's Abinera Costa who currently sits in the 3rd position. And Kevin Ford, he's dropping down some positions. Oh, Kevin Ford, no, what's happened? Road Atlanta has claimed yet another victim. Walk us through this one, Daniel.
Oh, I may not be seeing that.
So it looked to me like he just kind of lost it on entry. So it's a pretty straightforward spin, actually. There wasn't too much to it. As now we work our way on to the back straightaway for the 11th time in this race. Now we're only 13 minutes in, and we've already had that much exciting action. So this is definitely going to be an action-packed race here, as we still will watch this lead battle here, and we'll just watch and see how these guys do it. So now what's happened? Okay, yes, it's still 0.3 of a second for your lead in GTD, and that is shrinking, by the way, the gap from them to Esteban Rodriguez. So we just need to keep an eye on this because this is getting really interesting really, really quick. And side-by-side for the race lead, and Ignacio Hortal, he's off. Oh, no, for Ignacio Hortal. That is not what he wanted. Let's get a replay up now for you to see exactly what happened. But it was Denis Servac who went for the race lead, and he just, oh, yeah, he just dove it in a bit too deep, and then Hortal nowhere to go and ends up spearing into the outside barrier. So race control will have a look at that one. But now we have a really spicy lead here, a really spicy battle for the race lead, Daniel, between Servac and Rodriguez.
This is shaping up to be pretty interesting because these last few laps, we've seen the drivers, although they're in the same car, take slightly different lines through a few of the corners, and it looks like Rodriguez is using quite a bit more front tire than Servac, than Denis. Denis seems to be braking a little bit early, trying to roll some apex speed, and we've seen Rodriguez really hammer it in late on the brakes, kind of, the last of the late breakers between these two.
Yeah, he certainly is indeed. He is really chucking that car in, but while these two kind of have their battle, we also are brewing a battle up in your race lead right now. This is between William Laster, Caden Bien, and Abner Acosta as they work their way through the traffic here for the first time in this event. So this is one of the first times they will kind of get to see everything with the traffic, and you can see the front three have successfully made it through. But it's still William Laster who leads. We haven't really given these guys a whole bunch of airtime because, honestly, they've just been so calm in the first part of this race, Daniel.
It's been really interesting to see how the interval between them, that gap has really stayed relatively constant, fluctuating between 0.5 and 1.2. The drivers are really, they're not getting too aggressive, but they're trying to close the gap to each other. Between these three here, it'd be interesting to see if, this, from a strategy perspective, what will separate them. I know you mentioned on it, or you mentioned earlier that strategy is going to be really critical here. Do we have a way of seeing if any of them are using some of the lighter fuel maps or trying to save that way?
We don't have any way of seeing that exactly, but we do have a quite tasty battle here for the race lead. Caden Bien is caught up now in traffic to William Laster, and this is now really, really close between them two. So the Mivano sim racing driver of Caden Bien needs to be side by side with William Laster as they work down through turn 12. Bien to the race lead. Laster down to second here as they work on to lap 14.
That's a really beautiful inside move down into turn 12. Left enough racing room for the man, left enough racing room, but at the same time ensured that he had control of the corner. Really clean racing. It's great to see that.
Yeah, definitely some amazingly clean racing here between them tonight. It's still quite tight for the race lead in GTD. This is between still Rodriguez and Servac here as they work through lap 14. And you can just see these guys now. They're going to head down through 6 and 7. They stay close together. Another battle that's starting to come alive. This is Caleb Lavender after his big mistake. Kevin Broas and Brandon Whitworth also involved in this one. And then Brian Cartier, he actually just came out of pit lane, I believe. So did Holland, did he? Derek Holland actually may have just gone off the racetrack. Yes, I believe he did. Let's get a replay of this to see exactly what happened here. We'll go to the chopper camera once again to see what happened to the Indy Autosport driver. Oh, he just cooked it in a little bit too deep into one, slid out wide. Good on him to barely touch the barrier because that's so easy to go in that way bit too deep. But now we have a real battle for the race lead in our hands here, Daniel.
We do. Wow, three drivers all, right with each other, and some of the traffic they're running up into, that's the lead for the GTD class, correct?
This is indeed the battle for your GTD class lead, I do believe. So yes, this is definitely a little bit of an interesting dynamic here whenever you've got the leaders of both classes and they're both in a fight with each other. They're all trying to go through. Obviously, the GT-LM guys will be the guys who have to get by the GTD runners, but still it can be very, very challenging, and you can lose out on a lot of time, just like Esteban Rodriguez did there. He lost over a second to those GT-LM runners.
really unfortunate the position where he had to where he chose or was forced to kind of move out of the way for the faster cars, because he wasn't able to get enough of a draft down that short straight to make up for it.
They're exactly right here, and you can see they're gonna have to split the gap. Oh no, please don't do this. This is not gonna be good. Oh, but Dennis Servac, he's gonna lose a lot of time as well here, so this almost about panned out. And we were saying how Rodriguez was at a disadvantage. Well, now he's right back, even with these guys. But the guy who's really made out really well on this is Caden Bien. He's now 0.6 of a second clear of the drivers behind him.
Yeah, he really had some fortunate timing through turn 10. The other drivers had to play a little safe because they weren't sure if they were going to go 1 wide or 2 wide through the 10. Made a big difference for him.
Yeah, certainly did make a very, very big difference indeed. As they work their way down through the S's now for the 16th time in this event. Let's ride on board here with Dennis Servac. We're going to ride here on the roof cam of the Mercedes AMG, and you will see exactly what they are seeing here in that car. And oh, he has to slow down. Servac slows down, and Rodriguez has gotten the race lead, by the way, in this. Let's take a replay of exactly what happened. We completely missed this. This is heading out of turn number 2 here. Oh, and he checks up for the spinning D2D Esports car. I'm not exactly sure who that was, but it was one of the Ferraris. I believe that was maybe David Payton, possibly. I'm not 100% sure. They're Derek Hahn, no. Maybe David Payton that was. Not 100% sure, but Esteban Rodriguez, he has gotten his way up into the race lead now in your GTD class, and Dennis Servac has lost a lot of time. This is also Kevin Bross getting by Caleb Lavender down into 10A and B here, Daniel.
He lost it a little bit on the entry there. Yeah, definitely losing some pace and now giving that position back. Whitworth might take advantage of that as well, see if he gets by. Oof.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye here on this battle. This is definitely a close one indeed. And as they head up into turn 1, Whitworth, he's trying to get involved here with Kevin Bross. Let's see if he's able to make a move, but from the looks of it, Daniel, he's just not. Ooh, that was a little bit of a slide there from Kevin. He was able to regain it, but Brandon Whitworth now in a very, very good position here.
It's interesting to see Burrow's entry into 3, almost like he missed his braking point because he went in super shallow, super late on the brakes, and it really forced Whitworth to save it for fear of kind of hitting him at the apex. It wasn't quite as though Burrows parked it at the apex. It looked a little bit more like he lost control, but it'll be interesting to chat with him if we get a chance to see what happened there.
Exactly right, and as we'll ride on board here with Brandon Whitworth, as the sun should start to be coming up, but it's a bit overcast here, so you just start to see it peek through the clouds on the back straightaway here as we work through for these guys on lap 15. Lap 18 overall, 22 minutes into this event here for Brandon Whitworth and these guys in this very, very tight-knit battle in this one. And then the battle for the race lead has also not gone anywhere. It's still Laster and Bien. They're still very, very close to each other. But we'll stick with this one just for the time being and try to see, because every single time we seem to click off this battle, it immediately goes back to full heat mode.
The reverse commentator's curse. In fact, they know we're watching, so they want to be good drivers. But as soon as we look away, then the action ensues.
Yeah, it's exactly right. They're fine with doing it as soon as that we turn away. They're like, okay, we're good now. Now we don't have to worry about our stupidity being shown on camera. No, all seriousness though, we pretty much just have like you said, the uncommentator's curse of as soon as we switch away, everything starts to go good. But this is another really good battle here in the midfield of your GTLM field. This is Michael Schlegelmich, Brian Cartier, and Humberto Roca. They're all very, very close. And this is 3 different manufacturers all fighting here. And you can see as they're all also starting to get by the GTD traffic. But this is wonderful to see. 3 different manufacturers all fighting for the same position.
Something must have just happened to Esteban Rodriguez. We should take a look at a replay here, because it looks like he dropped in the standings tremendously.
Not seeing anything on my end. He's still up in the race lead. He's still at a 1.3 second advantage, so not quite sure what happened.
I was watching live timing, and I saw him dive through the rankings. It looked like he lost a little bit there. Sorry, false alarm.
All good. Now, as we take a look here, this battle is also starting to grow because Derek Holland has joined the party in the Ferrari here. So 4 different manufacturers all fighting for the same position. This is wonderful to see here in the Ricmotech GT Challenge. We have 4 different manufacturers all able to fight and go for that same position as Cartier gets very, very loose on the exit. Luckily, Derek Holland did not make contact with him and was able to keep it out of him. But now it's Schlegelmich and Umberto Roca. They're now the 2 that have really been left to battle here for that 13th position. So work onto the straightaway here. You'll see Roca, he should get a decent draft here down this back straightaway. Now, the draft isn't worth a lot here in these GT cars, Daniel, but it is worth something, and it can definitely help you try to make an overtake.
You know, and in these particular cars, you know, it's interesting. A track like this has enough of a long straight where you do have to decide whether or not you're going to run heavy aero or a little bit more streamlined package. You know, sometimes between the qualifying and race, you might choose to run a different package if that's allowed. But, you know, if you run a little bit too much aero, it can make these cars not fun to drive near each other. You know, I feel like this is kind of the beginning threshold where that really becomes relevant. You know, have you seen any of that in the practice sessions from the drivers or heard any commentary from them about that?
See, now, I'm not too sure. Now, I know drivers usually do have a different setup from qualifying to the race, but I'm not too sure how much they're going to be different aero-wise. But like you said, I mean, some cars, you know, they do run better when they're not, you know, in a pack behind each other, and then some cars run better when they do, or they are behind somebody. So, you know, it's really, I think, just down to personal preference for each one of these drivers. But the battle for the race lead is heating up here. We're going to go non-stop racing action here on Apex Racing TV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a few minutes for continuous coverage of the Ricmotech GT Challenge. And we're back here on Apex Racing TV, and we currently look at the battle for your race lead. Now, we do have a couple of a replay to go through here. This is Caleb Lavender. He had a massive off here in that Audi R8, and we'll just walk you through this one. Daniel, kind of talk us through this, and yeah, I think that's actually pretty straightforward. He just kind of loops it heading off at turn number 1, but we're getting towards pit stop times here, Daniel. And this is one of the more interesting times during this race. I mean, it's so interesting about what you could do with strategy here. And the strategy can really make or break your race event.
That's absolutely right. And, you know, and it makes or breaks your event, but it can also have an impact on some of the other classes. You know, as we get started, we've already seen one pit stop from the GTLM drivers. George Fike had a pit stop 1 lap ago. He was in the pit for a total of 48 seconds, 17 seconds in his box. So we'll use that as kind of a comparison as the rest of the drivers start to come in. But he came out within the top 4 of the GTD class. So it's likely that, you know, he'll play a part in helping them separate out. You know, so I think that's one place where, you know, you can see a lot of action, especially in multi-class racing. It makes it so great. But, you know, as these drivers come in, this is the beginning of that pit interval. So if they take a full fuel stop to load their car up real heavy, they can make it towards the end of the race with a stop now. But, you know, there's an added tire wear. So, you know, have I been gentle enough on my tires? You know, would I like to, you know, is that something that they'll be able to deal with for the next 48 minutes or 45 minutes? It really begs the question. So, you know, some of these guys will have a team of folks to help them make that decision, and some of them will be driving and making that call on their own. I personally tend to like the early pit stop strategies because it gives you an opportunity to take tires and have those tires count for something, you know, as you get more laps in on that fresher tire. But, you know, we haven't seen too many pit stops from either class yet, so I'll make sure to keep us updated as I see the drivers entering the pit. You know, what are your thoughts on these early pit stops? Do you tend to, you know, favor an earlier or a later pit stop? You know, what do you do with that optionality?
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of the later pit stop, just being that you kind of run the car out as long as it will go. You get a good idea of what the car does when the tires are a little bit more worn, so that whenever you come into the pit stop, you can kind of get your car fuel back up. You don't have to take tires in most cases, because you kind of know, or you can at least make a little bit better judgment, in my opinion, you know, on how the tires are, especially in these GT cars where they just changed the tire model. This is still kind of new to a lot of these drivers, so that is kind of the thing I'm thinking about, is just how new this is. Yes, they've had now nearly 6-7 weeks of iRacing official series on these tire model, but for drivers who maybe don't drive these GT cars full time, you know, that can be, they may not have all the experience in the world yet, and having that, you know, kind of longer run experience of exactly what the car is going to do could be very, very helpful for them.
It makes a lot of sense. If you run the car out a little bit, you can see, you know, how the car handles with a lighter fuel load, even if the tires are starting to give out. There's definitely an advantage that way because you're carrying less weight for more of the race. Yeah, I think, you know, these top few drivers, none of them have pitted yet. We did see our first pit stops come in the GTD class. Looks like they're running around 22 seconds. We'll see. We haven't seen any of the leaders pit yet, though. So we'll see what strategy choice they make as they come out.
Yeah, but that's also some of the beauty of like these 75-minute and 90-minute races, is that, you know, you can run different strategies. You can run a strategy like you were saying and come in early, and you can make it work just as well as a guy who runs the car all the way through, you know, the entire fuel tank. And that is what I just love about these races, is that there is so much freedom that you have in strategy and just a ability to make different decisions throughout the race to better or worse your race. And that is just, I mean, that's something that I just love about this. And it's one of the most fascinating parts for me, is that, you know, this is not fully dependent on just one set strategy. It's not a sprint race. At the end of the day, this is more of an endurance race. And, you know, you have that freedom to do whatever you want with it, basically.
I really couldn't agree more. That's it does get really exciting, because this is one of those opportunities that, you I mentioned earlier where you have an option to make a mistake or make a good choice, but you can also make a choice that forces your opponent to make a decision. If your pit stop is just a couple seconds long, does that mean you took tires? Do they have to consider that? Are they going to try and save some fuel so they can shorten their pit stop by a gallon or so worth of time? It really gets exciting in these 75-minute races and beyond. I'm really excited. Anyways, I'll stop there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a driver like Caden Bien, maybe, where, you've maybe kind of held up a little bit behind William Lasher, maybe you feel like you're being held up, and then you dive down onto the pit lane. Now, that also, like you were saying, it forces Lasser to think, okay, well, maybe if I was holding him up, maybe I do need to come down on a pit lane so that I can try to get back out ahead of him. But these guys, they're battling down into turn 10A and B. They're almost nearly made contact there as they go by some GTLM traffic here for the first time in this race. So they're passing a little bit of the slower same class cars that are just a little bit further down the order.
Pretty good defense by Laster there, staying mid-track, still giving himself enough room in turn 10, but at the same time discouraging that, that pass attempt from Bin there.
Exactly right. Making some of the more strategic moves. That is the exact thing that you need to be doing. You just got to strategically place your car in order to defend around a circuit like this. This is not a circuit that is the easiest place to defend around. So it is, it's so difficult, and you can see their car 9 incident responsibility there for an incident. I believe that was with Jim List, who also took List out. So let's actually get a replay there of exactly what happened in that case. Let's see here. What goes down on that one? Oh, so he just gets up on the curb, spins out Jim List. And that is unfortunate because the 9 car had just so much damage already. There really wasn't any reason to be fighting with the GTD car like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame, but hopefully those drivers can recover. The affected drivers can recover there, because it looked like there were a few drivers that had to slow down and respond to that incident in their way. So, but we're getting some action here. This is Bin and Laster, and Acosta. This is three-way battle. This is really, really exciting. Little flashing lights, but we've noticed Laster is parking it on the apex just a little bit because Bin's been trying to rush in, being late on the brakes there. Especially on 3, you'll kind of notice it. He slows down just enough to force Bin to back off.
And Hartley dives into the pit lane here. He's one of your first pit lane goers here, so I guess you could call this an early stop if you can see my air quotes there. But yeah, this is still, a little bit later into the race, but at the end of the day, we do still have 25 more minutes left in this event, so there is still a lot more time. Sorry, more than that, actually. We have more like 35 more minutes left in this event, so we're pretty much just over the halfway point at this time for the time in this event. So this is kind of more of an earlier stop then for Hartley, but we'll see if he's able to make it work out.
Looks like he's taking a little bit longer. Oh no, 19 seconds. So, it looks like he's definitely not the slowest stop we've had yet. He's on the faster end. I'm not sure if he took less fuel here. I guess that's probably 2 gallons worth of fuel, that extra second. Does that sound about right?
It sounds about right to me. I'm not exactly sure what the fuel numbers are, but at the end of the day, that is also, I think, the difference between a GTD and a GTLM car. I think that they do have to take a little bit less fuel in the GTLMs. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see the difference here with Arthur Chan as he exits. Yeah, he was about a second faster than Hartley into the box, and Jose Cabrera as well. He comes in, so it was Hartley, Chan, and Cabrera in on this lap, and now Mike Dam as well. He's going to join down the pit lane. He'll be the first of your front-running cars to dive into the pit lane, so it looks like we're going to start getting GTLM cars in very, very soon. Oh, and there's a pileup. This is Kevin Ford and a few other drivers. That's Los Gidiolio involved as well. Let's get a replay here of exactly what happened.
Oh, looks like...
Oh, there's a car wrecked. Oh, okay, so we have to go back even farther to figure out what this was here. So it looked to me like Schlegelmich gets into List here, and then that causes them to be spun out on the edge of the track. Yes, it does. And then Schlegelmich is going slowly. Schlegelmich comes back out. Diolio slides into Schlegelmich. Huge incident there. And then that's going to have, you're going to have Kevin Ford here coming in very, very soon. Kevin Ford, nothing he can do. Oh, he has to avoid Jim Lisser, who sits on the edge of the track. And then whenever he comes back on, into the side of Lowski Diolio. And that's how that whole mess came about. So that was a bit interesting as Karen and Ledesma go side by side. Ledesma backs out of that one quite easily.
While we were watching the replay, so it looks like Mike Dam, he took one of the longer pit stops in GTLM so far. It may be worth taking a look to see if he took tires or not, but I guess he's spent 2 seconds longer in the pit than the next slowest GTLM stop.
He did spend quite a bit more time in the pit lane there, but I mean, we've seen them. I mean, it's hard to tell, honestly. It could honestly just be an over fuel, but like you said, it could also be him taking 2 tires, and that's not a bad strategy for some of these guys because we do know that they kind of struggle on tire wear after about the first hour in the car, so doing kind of anything over that, the tire wear can struggle a little bit for you, so it's really, really tough to tell there whether he did take tires or not. And if he did, he could be looking at a pretty nice advantage here late into this run.
There's even less and less of an incentive to take tires because you just don't have enough time for that extra couple seconds in the pit to pay off. But yeah, we'll see. These top 3 though, they're still going strong and have not decided to come into the pit. So we'll see who flinches first and steps off pretty early.
Yeah, exactly right. We'll see who comes in early. Here, let's ride on board with Caden Bien in the Ferrari as he works his way through some of your GTD traffic here, and he tries to close in on your race leader, William Laster, in the Ford GT GTE. And there you go, just at the bottom of your screen, you can see car 994, incident responsibility. That's Michael Schlegelmich. And he's already been in the pits now for a minute and a half, so I don't think he's going to be going anywhere anytime soon. That was a drive-through penalty as well. So Schlegelmich most likely going to be in the pit lane here for the remainder of this race. He most likely will be out of it. But Dennis Servac, he is onto the lane here for the first time in this race. So it's Dennis Servac. He is the first one to flinch in GTD, one of the first ones to flinch in GTD at least. And he's also... Go ahead.
Just jumped into the pit there. So we've got some of our leader, coming in for a quick pit stop. He was able to make the exit.
And that was Laster and Ian Gagan Renault. So the 2 F4H Racing teammates down on the lane this time. Caden Bien as well in the Ferrari. He now leads this one out. And then it's Abanera Costa. He is currently in 2nd place in this race. Now I want to see, does Esteban Rodriguez, does he flinch? And does he now come down onto pit lane this early into the race?
A lot to watch here, a lot of action. Seeing drivers, what are the decisions they're making in the pit, but also those that are staying out a little longer, Acosta and Bin, are they able to push fast enough laps here to, make up for the difference afterwards? So let's see if they can really take advantage of the clear track right now.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, and we'll just try to get an idea of what the track looks like here. So we'll go here to K&B, and you can see he's highlighted in black on the right-hand side of your screen. They do have a little bit of traffic to deal with, as he is going to come down onto the lane. Abanera Costa, he will stay out. Now let's keep an eye here on where is William Laster in comparison to Caden Bien. Is he going to be able to jump in here in the pit stop phases? Will William Laster, or will he be forced to close in on him again? Now it's Miguel Arcrudo. He's also into the lane. Bien is just now stopped in his box as Laster comes through turns 10A and B and onto the front straightaway. This is going to be a very close one here, Daniel, whether William Laster is able to fully get out ahead of Caden Bien.
Yeah, it's going to be really close, and we'll have to see how that, that pit exit right up on the entry to turn 3 is. It's a really common place for contact, accidental contact there, because it's, hard to see those drivers coming up. But looks like he made it.
And he made it by a long shot, actually, so
yeah.
My apologies. It was nowhere near close, actually. He was well clear of Caden Bien, and that is the exact gap that William Laster needed. He needed a very large gap like that now to the guys he was battling, and this is what we were talking about, a difference in strategy, is that anything can happen as far as strategy. Now, does Habanera Costa come into the box this time? Yes, he does. Oh, no, he doesn't. He fakes it there. So Habanera Costa, he will not come down into the lane this time. He'll wait another lap to bring himself down on a pit lane.
So his last lap was a good 0.3 of a second faster than, you know, any of the other runners that have pitted yet so far. So he's, you know, hopefully he can make this add up, and it'll give him a chance to catch up to some of those leaders, and he can run, you know, equivalent on full load with him for the rest of the race.
We continue to watch here, Habanera Costa. He is yet to come into the box, and it will be William Laster who should take over the provisional race lead once that happens. But Robert Hartley and Miguel Arcrudo, they're battling it out actually quite hard down into turn 10A and B here, side by side. Hartley up into the 7th spot. Arcrudo now down into 8th as they head out of turn 10A and B. Neither of them come to the box this time. Obviously, Hartley actually both of them already did come down to the box, so they don't even have to worry about that. And they will be able to get themselves to the end of this one. This is Miguel Arcrudo and Humberto Roca. They've all come down onto the lane this time. But Daniel, I mean, this is an interesting strategy here from Habanera Costa. He is still running out in that Movano sim racing car. And as we're going to close down to 25 minutes to go here very, very soon, this is a very, very long run for him.
Yeah, this is absolutely a long fuel run. I want to say from some of the other races in this season, 49 minutes seems to be about the cutoff for some of these GTLM cars. Around that time. So, he's running himself real close to empty. And his lap times look like they're benefiting from a lighter car. He's been running a good 3 to 4 tenths faster than the next fastest driver. Although William Laster just turned a flyer, but but hopefully it helps him catch up on some of the rest of the mid-pack to give him, track position later on in the race.
Yeah, that was a pretty good lap there from William Laster. He's only half second off of what his fastest lap in the entire race was. So he is definitely closing in on Habanera Costa. And if you're a Costa right now, what do? Do you realize that you're losing speed and react and come down onto the lane, or do you stay out and just try to ride it out a little bit longer?
Well, I mean, he's got a little bit of clean track in front of him. So it looks like he came in. I was going to say he's got a little clean track in front of him. So if he was going to stretch one more lap, this would be a lap to do it. Now let's see if he can come out, save some position, because he had a 29-second lead on Laster, I believe, which is not enough for him to come out ahead of Laster, but that does mean that he made up some distance on the mid-pack there, in Crudo. So we'll see where he ends up afterward.
And we're going to ride on board here with William Laster as he rounds himself out of 10A and B and onto the front straightaway. Habanera Costa still stopped in his box. We saw this last time. If Acosta doesn't get going about now, then he won't beat William Laster, and he will not beat William Laster. Now it's just a race off pit road between Costa and Caden Bien, and Bien should easily get ahead of Habanera Costa with the overspeed on the exit. So Movano Sim Racing, they obviously did not get something right here in their calculations that F4H Racing were, because William Laster now leads by 5 seconds.
That pit time by Abner Acosta was blazingly fast. It was a 46-second pit stop, which is a full 2 seconds faster than William Laster, who came out, well ahead of where he needed to be ahead of Ben. So, I mean, that was a, really fast pit stop. He even spent a second less time in the box. So, running that late, spending that extra lap really must have allowed him to save on fuel there.
Yeah, and that's just the crazy part to me, is that how Laster was able to come in, avoid some of that major traffic, and then gain that much time. And that's one of the really hard things about multi-class racing here, is that, unless you've got someone kind of feeding your ear and giving you information, then it's really, really tough to have all the information that you need. And just looking here at the list, the only driver in this entire field with a spotter is Caden Bien. And he has a spotter to help him out in this one. But I mean, it's one of those things that can be so tough, and some of the time you just almost have to get a little bit lucky.
You know, luck does play a part at times. You know, there's a little bit of randomness and everything, but wow, that's some, you know, real close between Acosta and Bin there. That was almost bad for both of them.
You're exactly right, and the gap in GT3 hasn't really changed here. It's still 2.3 seconds between Dennis Straback and Esteban Rodriguez. But what a day it's been thus far for F4H Racing. They're leading both categories here in the Ricmotech GT Challenge Series here from Road Atlanta. We're only 25 minutes now to the end of this one, and they have pretty much a stranglehold after all the pit stops have already played out in both classes. So no more pit stops will take place. But F4H Racing leads out both of them, and that is very, very impressive for them after what was a very close first 40 minutes of this race.
Definitely. I mean, and you know, we've seen with the pit stops, a lot of these races, pit stops and some of the contact, a lot of these races, you know, split up just a little bit, create some room. So now this is where the drivers are off, kind of driving their own race, trying to minimize mistakes because there's no one to force them. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. But we got 25 minutes. What happened here? Jim List.
So please don't tell me this is another incident involving Jim List, because this guy, and he just loses it just a little bit. But I was just about to say, I mean, Jim List has had not the greatest luck today in this race. He's kind of had a few very, very unfortunate incidents. And I've actually just seen there... no, actually, sorry, Bobby. It is Esteban Rodriguez. He is leading in your GTD field. But as we work our way through, this is the only battle on the racetrack. It's between the two teammates, Abner Acosta and Caden Bien. They're currently battling for second place in your GT LM field.
We'll have to see if they can work together enough to, you know, to try and close that gap to Laster. But Acosta got a, you know, really rough entry. Ooh, Bin, that'll be a hole, or yeah, that's definitely a penalty for that. The cut the track penalty. What happened there? Did he just lose it on the braking entry? Hit some marbles?
So let's see here. We'll watch a replay. Oh, he just got up on the curb just a little bit, and then had to take through the curb. Had to take it through the infield there of the racetrack. We also have one more battle here. This is Anthony Pisano and Kevin Bross. These two have not really left each other's bumper for a long while in this race, and they still continue to battle here. 54 minutes into this one. We're already 42 laps down, so we've already done a lot of laps around the Road Atlanta circuit. This is quite a short racetrack, being at 1:17 in length, but we've done quite a bit of laps already, and the tires will be, if you didn't take tires in the pit stop, which no one did, you will be feeling the effects of that tire wear now.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And on a few of these cars, you'll feel the tire wear in different places, it seems. You know, I think seeing a little bit more lockup from some of the front engine cars, the mid-engine cars than we have the front engine cars. So it'd be interesting to see what the drivers are struggling with when we get a chance to chat with them later in the race, and how that differs car platform to car platform.
Yes, certainly will be indeed. But currently have 20 minutes left in this event. It's William Laster leading, Ebener Acosta second, Caden Bien in third, Ian Gagnon Renault, he rounds out your top four for F4H Racing. Then it's Michael Arcrudo, Andrew Karen, Robert Hartley. And this is the Excite driver of Robert Hartley. And then it's Mike Dam for Cryptology Racing Orange, Angel Ledesma for Delta Racing, Travis Schwenke for the Excite Ashbury Motors for the Excite iRacing team. Then it's Humberto Roca again for Delta Motorsports, Arthur Chan here in the Axon Racing Porsche. And then it's Mike Arcrudo in the Delta Motorsports, number 55. He currently is in 13th place. And it's Rafael Sosa again for Delta Motorsport. Delta Motorsport is a very big field here. Who is that slow on the exit of the corner? It's Abner Acosta. So Acosta was slow. What has happened to him as he heads down into turn 7? He's just going to push off wide, and that's a very simple mistake there for him. Well, we'll jump back here to Rafael Sosa.
little too high and maybe put some wheels on the grass there. Good job collecting it, though, because it looked like a car was trying to rotate on it.
And that was and this is actually now a crew now closing up here to Arthur Chan, but we'll continue with kind of a rundown of the field here. It's Kevin Ford in the Ricmotech Motorsport white car. He is your series admin. And then next in line is Derek Holland for Indy Autosport, Brian Cartier for Phoenix Racing, Chad Curran in that Porsche 911, and then it's Jose Cabrera for the BMW then. And then we get back down to your GTD runners here. It's Esteban Rodriguez, who currently leads that one out. Dennis Servac in second for Band of Others Racing, and then it's Tyler Galmente for F4H Racing, Brandon Whitworth for D2D Esports, Kevin Broas in the Mercedes AMG. Then it's Anthony Pisano, as they're just going to go side by side here down the front straightaway and through turn number 12. Now up into turn number 1. Are they going to be able to make it through cleanly this time? And yes, they will. It'll be Pisano up into 5th. Now Broas down into 6th place. Jeff Jacobs down in 7th place in your GTDs. Then it's Jim List. And the rest of the drivers are not running at the moment, but Russ Ruddick is also running here in GTLM. So that is your full field rundown here at the 57-minute mark in this race. There is a lot of drivers out here tonight, Daniel. I think that's what we just got from that.
A lot of drivers still turning laps. See that we only have a handful that that are out for the minute, or for the moment. That's says a lot about the field. They definitely put in some time practicing and getting their setups right. So it's good.
Yeah, you're certainly right. And we will go nonstop racing action here. When we come back, we'll be under 15 minutes to go here in the Ricmotech GT Challenge. Don't go anywhere. Join us for the last 15 minutes. And we're back here for the last 12 minutes of the Ricmotech GT Challenge here from Road Atlanta. A battle started to brew here from Miguel Arcrudo and Andrew Karen here. Karen has started to close in on him. And Daniel, talk us through this. I mean, a little bit. Karen's kind of been closed in lap after lap here. And if you're Andrew Karen, you know you've got this kind of speed over the car ahead of you. I mean, what's your kind of strategy going forward? Are you just going to go full attack? Or are you just going to kind of know that you've got that pace in your back pocket, considering you've already made it over an hour through this race and you only have a few minutes left to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this case it depends on, is he still trying to fight to see if he can make it to Acosta? We know Acosta has been dropping down the top few positions here. He went from second down to fourth, so it means he's only got, he doesn't have too much time to try and make up if Acosta makes one more mistake. But seeing that it's an 8-second gap, to the next driver, I probably play this safe and pick my passing zone, do what I can to avoid getting into the clack and kind of pressuring him too much. It seems like he's carrying smoother lines through some of the corners, braking just a little bit earlier, trying to roll that apex speed. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, are you someone that tries to, go real aggressive, or are you trying to be a little bit more calculated with your aggression?
So, I'm just someone who's just full send. Just absolutely get it done quick as possible. And, some of the time that hurts me, some of the time it, it's good. But in my opinion, I'd be trying to get by as soon as possible because they are closing in on Acosta hand over fist right now. They're gaining so much time. And you can see Karen, he realizes that, and he goes in. A very nice pass indeed by Andrew Karen. He will get by Abner Acosta. By Arcrudo. Arcrudo will try to fight him back here, and they'll have a drag race down and towards 10A and B. But it looks to me like Andrew Karen should be able to hold on to the position here because he will have the inside line, and it should be a pretty straightforward pass here from Andrew Karen, and he's going to pretty easily make that one. No, but he's still fighting as Arcrudo.
Yeah, well, and if you can kind of see there on 10B, he got into the clack. Karen got into that, that little bit of that, those marbles out on the outside of the track, and you saw him start to lose control there. And that's where this can get a little sketchy, and I think picking your not late in a race can make a big difference because the track's dirty, and not every spot of the surface has the same amount of traction.
Yeah, you're exactly right. There's a lot of marbles getting delivered this late into the event. And another battle that's starting to heat up here. Look at this. Dennis Sirac for Band of Others Racing. He is gaining on Esteban Rodriguez here as we head into the final 9 minutes of this event. He is really closing in fast here. So the driver who has been so fast and has won so many of these races, he may be able to claim another victory here today, but he's got to get by Esteban Rodriguez first. And we know how fast Rodriguez has been today. He's not going to let that position go easily.
Not sure what the sector times look like for those two drivers, but we were seeing Rodriguez had a really good exit out of 7, but he struggled a little bit on the entry to 6 there. So, I wonder if there's a few of these corners, some of the higher speed sweepers, that he's losing a little bit of time there.
And you can see those are your sector gaps here for them in this one. So the biggest sector gain is in sector number 3 here. That can be identified here if we turn off the drivers here on our track map. Those can be identified by the dots. So the start-finish line, which is the red stripe, to the first dot, that's sector number 1. Sector 2 is from that first dot in the track to the second dot, and then the third sector is from the second dot to the third, and then the third is from the third dot to the start-finish line. Pretty straightforward. And if you want all that, you can go to apexracingtv.com/timing, and you'll be able to get the track map, all the events, as well as live timing here for this event, so that you can see all the same things that we get, all the information that we get behind the scenes, you can get to yourself at home. But that is what we're looking at here for sector-wise, and you can see he really gains in sector number 2, does Dennis Servac, on Esteban Rodriguez, and in this sector 3, but this time he doesn't. He gets held up a little bit, but nonetheless, he is just very, very quick. But those 2 GTE machines are not what he needs. But look at this. There was a little bit of a glitch on the oval. It was Crudo and Karen. Crudo got very close to Karen once again, but we'll jump back to this battle again and see if Dennis Servac is going to be able to close in and gain on or be able to get by Dennis Rodriguez by the end of this one. And he's running out of time to do it, Daniel. He's only got 7 minutes left.
Minutes and 5 to 6 laps he's got left. So that's the pressure is on. You can see him making a few more aggressive than we might have seen earlier. He's passing on the inside of some of these corners that aren't super grippy on the inside of the track there. So he's trying to do what he can to close the gap, and he did, down to half second. He made it through traffic fast there. Wow. Oh, and he's closing in 0.3 of a second. We'll see if he tries to make a run down into 10.
Yeah, whenever you're in the slower class, it is so difficult because, some of the time you do have to deal with the slower GTLM cars, but as well you have to deal with just the overall class, the drivers who are in your class that you're going around a lap if you are lapping them. And as well, you've also got to worry about cars going by you. So being the slower class can definitely be difficult, especially whenever there's not a whole big pace difference between those two classes. But you can see the difference in lines here. Look at how much time Dennis Servac gains on the exit, and look at how much less tire wear he must be using in comparison to Rodriguez. And that's, I think, is what hurting Rodriguez right now, is that he's losing a lot of tire wear, and now Dennis Servac, he's looking everywhere on him, isn't he, Daniel?
You can see it in Rodriguez's driving. He's starting to creep in and inch his way in a little early. His turn-in marks. I'm not sure if the pressure is getting to him or if he's trying to be defensive here. But every little bit that he pushes his turn-in early, he's using some extra tire. So 5 minutes. I don't know if that'll be enough to make it matter. But he's probably been driving more aggressive on that front tire the whole race. So we'll see if we can have some action here. But this last lap at the exit of 7, what we saw is the two drivers exited at about the same speed. Their gap was pretty consistent, and both drivers had the benefit of a draft. But in this time here, Rodriguez does not have the GTLM car directly in front of him. So this gap, we might actually see a move here coming down into 10.
Yeah, we certainly could see a move here for him down into turn number 10. We'll watch it here. They are going to go side by side, but it won't be enough here for Servac. He does back out of it, and he will slot back in a line, but just letting him know that he is there, not so much forcing a move, but at least just saying, hey, just want to let you know I'm here, and I am going to be a force to be reckoned with later on.
Yeah, you're 100% right there. It's and it's one of those things where you can defend one move, you can defend two, but if a driver is continually making moves on you, that can start to wear at you. I know, in my personal experience racing, that I've made more mistakes in those times than I do other times.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, and it's definitely a tough balance, but we'll see how he gets on. I mean, he is losing a little bit of time as Dennis Servac right now on Rodriguez. Esteban Rodriguez ahead of him, so I mean, this is tough because this is kind of a very fluctuating battle. It's not a consistent up or down. These guys are really kind of moving all over the place, just dependent on traffic and how, where they get their clear air and whatnot. So this is going to be tough for these guys to truly get a good gauge here on where they're faster than each other and where they lose on each other. So that is also good to see. And we just now have just about 3 minutes left to go here. Let's see where William Lasser is. He's just now heading down into turn 6 and 7, so he should have about 3 more laps to go. He should be coming down to 2 to go here next time by. So for these guys, this will be 3 laps to go for them in your GTD field. 3 more times across the stripe for Dennis Servac to gain all that time to Rodriguez.
Wide there, coming up into 3. They've got faster traffic behind them, and the last time they had this issue, we saw Servac come out ahead. He seemed to gain more in his ability to pass through traffic cleanly. But they got 3 cars coming up, so we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, we'll try to see exactly what they can do. There's one of the drivers, that's the Indy Autosport driver of Derek Holland, just behind these two. And he will try to make it. He should be able to make it here on the straightaway. I don't think he really wants to get involved in these guys' battle, but I believe there's also the driver of Robert Hartley just behind them as well. So Hartley could also get into this battle, and he's got a little bit closer. He's only 1.8 seconds ahead of Mike Dam, so there is a good chance that Hartley could more shove his way through than the Indy Autosport driver of Derek Holland would.
Yeah, and it looks like we didn't get any benefits of drafting coming down that straight. A lot of times in the slower class, you'll see the driver, if there's room, try and quick slide over behind that faster car to get any toe that they can get. But Servac did not do that here. He was really stuck on that inside line coming into 10 to try and see if he had a chance to defend it and maintain that position. But he may have cost himself a little bit of time there.
Yeah, that's also such a fine line too, because like these GTD cars are actually, I think, a little bit faster in a straight line than your GTLMs. Now they do have a little bit of horsepower reduction to them, but at the end of the day, they are still very quick in a straight line, and they don't have as much aero to them. So they can almost be faster sometimes than your GTLM cars. So it can be very, very difficult for these guys to kind of slot back in line and really gain a whole lot of time. But, I mean, hey, anything's worth it. Anything is worth a shot at this point for Dennis Servac to try and close up that gap, because right now he's been kind of caught more through the corners, at least on the GTLM side goes, whereas Esteban Rodriguez, he's been more caught on the straights, and that's a big disadvantage here for Servac. That just means he has to work even harder than he was before.
That's exactly right, and we saw how much that having a clean run on the straight with a little bit of drafting made a difference. Servac caught 2.5 tenths there on that last last run down the back straight. So a couple times of having traffic give you a 2.5 second lead that's a really big deal. So I think you're exactly right there.
Yeah, just a big deal. I can't stress enough. It's so frustrating whenever you're the driver in the opposite scenario though, and you're like, man, I've had traffic cost me 7 seconds in the last 2 laps. But that's just multi-class racing, and that's the tough part of it. We will see William Laster now. He will come down to take the checkered flag, and he will win here for Mern America. Beautiful job from him. It'll be Caden Bien who will come home in second. Abner Acosta and Ian Gagnon-Renault, they're still battling for third. It should be Ian Gagnon-Renault who will take the third position here. Acosta won't have anything to do. And then it's Andrew Karen will come home in fifth. Well, we need to check in on the GTD battle. It isn't moving. It's still going to be Rodriguez here over Dennis Servac. And this could be the first win of the season here for Esteban Rodriguez in the F4H racing car, as he will work his way down into turn 10A, through 10B, and on to and through turn 11 and 12, and then on to the front straightaway. Esteban Rodriguez wins in GTD.
Wonderful race to watch. I mean, those two drivers put on a show today. Laster, Bin, and Acosta, and Gagnon-Renault, he ran a pretty clean race and, did all right. We had a lot of good drivers putting on great shows today.
Yeah, we certainly did indeed. Now we just wait on kind of your final bit of order to get finished here, and a few more drivers just to cross the line. We don't have many of them that we're waiting to cross. I think this is actually the final driver. I believe it's Brian Cartier. Final of your drivers to cross the line here tonight, and yes, it is. So let's go ahead and get your post-race results. And it's William Laster taking the win here over Caden Bien and Ian Gagnon-Renault. It's Abner Acosta who comes home in fourth, Andrew Karen fifth, Mike Arcrudo in sixth, Robert Hartley seventh, Angel Ledesma eighth, Mike Dam ninth, and Travis Schwenke. That rounds out your top 10. Humberto Roca in 11th, Arthur Chan in 12th, Rafael Sosa, Michael Arcrudo, Derek Holland, Kevin Ford, Brian Cartier, and Chad Curran. That's your top 18 in your GTLMs. Then as we move down a little bit more, it's Esteban Rodriguez for F4H Racing who takes the win in GTD. Dennis Servac for Band of Others Racing comes home in second. Jose Cabrera down to 21st overall in your GTLMs. And it's Tyler Galmente in third place for your GTDs. Brandon Whitworth fourth. Anthony Pisano rounds out your top 5 for your GTD field. Then it's Kevin Bross, Jeff Jacobs, Jim List, Russ Ruddock, one of the drivers who was, I'm going to count as pretty much a not finisher. Loski Diolio, Chris Thorman, Eric Violet, Tony Kernan, Michael Schlegelmich, Robert Briss, Jordy Fike, and Caleb Lavender, David Payton, Ignacio Hortal, and then some of the other guys who did not even take the starting grid. Those include Jennifer McDonald, Elvis Rankin, Marco Colby, and Bobby Childs. So that is your entire field here tonight of finishers and drivers here. So we're just waiting on drivers to come in for an interview, and then we'll kind of get wrapped up. But in the meantime, Daniel, what a race we just witnessed. I mean, that was incredible here at Road Atlanta. And that's just some of the racing that we come to expect at a track like this. I mean, it promotes amazing racing, and it really can be just one of the best tracks to get that just really close battling, especially in GT cars.
And I think if you look back to the beginning of the race, we were looking at the qualifying times and just seeing how tightly packed the fields were in terms of the times they're throwing down. You're exactly right. This track seemed to generate some great racing. And when you look at a lot of the drivers, they were all really cool, collected. We had a couple drivers turn some incident-free races that were at the top of the podium there. So it's definitely had some guys that were in control of their car, and it made a big difference. We also saw pit strategy come into play. We were really expecting a couple of the guys to show up closer after pits, but seeing the pit times not really add up to where drivers came out on track. It was a lot of excitement and kind of suspense as we were going through and watching.
Yeah, certainly was indeed. And we just wait a little bit while longer for these drivers to get in here for an interview. And we have our first of our interviews here. It is Ian Gagnon-Renault. Ian, welcome to the commentary booth. And a pretty good race from you. You made up 2 spots from where you started, but obviously you would like to be 2 spots higher in the podium, but it isn't bad for your teammate William Laster, who was able to capture the win tonight.
Oh, yeah, I'm really happy for him. He got a really good result. So, yeah, and for myself, I was just trying to hang in there and get the most points I could get for the championship. So I'm just happy about the result, and I think William is too.
Yeah, and it's a nice night for you guys at F4H Racing. That should be good points on the board for you guys. And we've had quite a long break here from the GTC. How did that kind of change a little bit for you guys? Did you guys kind of take a little bit of a break as far as your preparation go, or were you kind of prepping in that 4-week break that we had?
We did not, and iRacing did a lot of changes with the GTE cars, so we had to get our setup done to be sure that we have a car ready for this race.
Yeah, but you guys seem to do a very good job of that. Is there anyone you want to give a shout-out to before we let you go here? Anyone who helped you get that car is where it is tonight?
I guess I'll thank you. Say thanks to William, and also congratulations to Tyler and Esteban that did a really good job in the GT3 field.
Well, congratulations, Ian, on a 3rd-place finish, and we'll go ahead and let you go for tonight, but thanks for joining us.
All right. Good night, guys.
And that was Ian Gagnon-Renault. And we'll wait and see if we get anyone else in here, but it doesn't look like we're going to get anyone. So I think we'll go ahead now. We'll give it just a couple more minutes, but we had an amazing race here, Daniel. It really, really was incredible. We're going to have a couple of week break, and then we'll join us back for GTC once again here tonight. So we'll have, I'm just trying to get an exact day here. That we'll have the next round of the GTC. But we will have a couple of rounds of the Sports Car Series and the new Classics Sports Car Series as well. So we'll have a 2-week break. Then we'll be back for another round of the GTC action. That will be on the 12th of May. Will be the next time that we will see GT cars rolling around in the Ricmotech GT Challenge spec. But it doesn't look like we'll be getting any interviews to Daniel. Any final thoughts from you before we cap off tonight?
Good showing. We had 3 different makes in the top 4 spots of the podium. So I think the balance of power is looking like looked great the last few races, and this race included. great to see some drivers keeping it safe, and we've got some really low incident counts among a few drivers. So overall, I think it was a great race to watch. Really looking forward to coming back in a couple weeks and seeing what we have there.
Yeah, I certainly am indeed. Join us back in 2 weeks' time for GT Challenge racing here on Apex Racing TV, but also be sure to join us next week at the same time for the new and improved sports car series and classic sports car series that will be coming to you live on Apex Racing TV. So be sure to join us then. But for myself, Tyler Maxson, and Daniel Dorr, we thank you for tuning in tonight here from Road Atlanta, and we'll see you again next time.